nothing to it. Go ahead and bring Goliath on. Ain't no giant, I ain't gon' fire on. Catch a fade, you I'm warm, I'm gone. Y'all can catch the wave that I am on. I am icon, y'all are wide wrong. Think that I'm gonna reconcile bonds. Here ain't nothing to it though. This is on me, ain't got much to do with who you know. Keeping it true to from 10 L's into a milli though. But they already knew that those farewell to your opinions. Know that he is so. This is all me, ain't got much to do with who you know. Yeah, keeping it true to form, but they already knew that, y'all. Here we go.
Welcome to downtown Mansfield, Ohio, where it is the Saturday Pigskin coming at you right now, presented by Scout Construction LLC. My name is Brian Skowronski. We've got Erik, Will, Effie, James joining me once again on this beautiful Saturday. And man, week 8, it gave us a lot to talk about, I think, boys. There were some upsets. There were some teams that showed out as well. So what would you say some of the top takeaways from what we saw last night? So some pretty crazy outcomes, I would say, in North Central Ohio.
I'm gonna let Effie go.
You won't go first?
I want to let Effie go.
He don't look like he wants to step out either.
Right.
Obviously the Wooster Senior game was huge last night, and the outcome wasn't to be expected by most. But again, we talk a lot in here about how the game changes and how you got to come ready to play. One of the big factors that I always talk about, because for most people it doesn't make a big difference, but I always take the weather into account. When you have such a big change in climate and how cold it is, it kind of changes the way some people think and play and how outcomes come. So it was interesting to see a cold night at Wooster and some fans being cold and all of that, but the game itself was entertaining to watch, but I'm sure Tiger fans this morning are feeling a little down.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was not predicting that. I was on the same train you were. I thought 10-0, here we go. That's why we're a part of the media. Right. You know, we get to make those predictions, and players have to go out and play. For me, it was that upset. I mean, because that was a huge upset. I mean, that's you look at it from two perspectives. The Wooster perspective for Coach Haas and his kids. How cool was that? Great win, beat a great program. Now that catapults them into the playoff race. But more importantly, they're now the one to be chased for that league title, and that sets up a huge game at Ashland week 10, because that's their last remaining OCC game. But from a senior high perspective, from a Mansfield perspective, there was a lot of plays left on the field. There was a lot of opportunities for them to kind of put that game away, specifically early in the second half, even late first half. This is, to me, it's a perfect example of the better team didn't win, meaning from the more athletic team, the team that has the higher ceiling. But Wooster doesn't have to apologize for a win. And that's the cool thing about competitive athletics. Wooster did the things that they needed to do to win the football game. But for me, I think that's where it starts and stops for week 8. It's just, man, these conference races have kind of just been thrown up, you know, like confetti through a paper shredder.
I think that's a good way to put it. When you look at the MOAC, the Northern 10, and the OCC, the 3 leagues that we're talking about every week, it's like Men in Black, where just, erase your mind what you thought you saw last week. It's all new right now. But we'll go ahead, we'll roll the moving pictures. We'll show you what went down last night on the Run Back. Let's kick things off with an OCC rivalry matchup, Ashland at Lexington. Both teams just 2-5 on the year, but the Minutemen getting the offense going early. It's Alex Green, one of the top speedsters in the whole state, shaking loose on the far sideline. It was 7-0 in favor of the Minutemen, but Mitch Howman with the answer. He's going to fly into the end zone right there. Later on, Howman, though, escapes the pocket, looking to make a big play, and he's going to get intercepted. This would lead to a Minutemen field goal. Lexington would hang around, but Mitch, who threw for 286, he had 5 total touchdowns in the game, did the senior. The Arrows end up winning this thing 35-10 on the road to remain in the OCC chase. Big game for playoff rankings at Skiles Field. Shelby hosting Lima Central Catholic, and Thunderbirds Junior running back Sean Thomas. If you don't know him, you're about to get informed, kids. Here he is, bursting free. He's got some crazy speed too, Coach. You were telling me he's like a 10-second guy.
Yeah, every person in Shelby's having nightmares with that guy running down Skiles Field right now.
Later it would be McGuire Albert keeping it on the option. Shelby hung tough all night. They had lots of responses in this game, but Thomas went for 316 on the ground, and oh, by the way, 113 through the air. There he is catching one, taking it in for another Thunderbird touchdown. Like I mentioned, though, the Whippets, they kept answering the call. Here's Grant Gossam with a kick return touchdown, but the Birds just had too much firepower on this night. 55-41 the final score. LCC going on the road and showing that they got some athletes.
Yeah, that's a heck of a football team right there. When you look at the scores, I mean, they're putting it on teams like Mogador. Shelby's got to regroup. They still have everything in front of them. If they win out, they're going to be a co-conference champ at worst, and they'll still be in the playoffs.
Stay in the MOAC, Galion at Ontario. Tigers looking to stay on top of the conference standings right now, but the Warriors would be the team that would come out of the gates hot. We're looking at Jalen Scott. He's going to break it loose. He goes in for a 7-0 Ontario Warriors lead. Later on, though, it's going to be Trevor O'Brien with the answer for the Tigers. Their big bruiser untouched, though, as he tastes Pater. Then Isaiah Alsip, this kid got things going last night. He was huge for them, 181 receiving yards. He had 3 touchdowns as well, did the senior. Wilson Frankhouse had an efficient night, too. The Tigers, they just took care of business on the road, boys. They did what they needed to do. 42-20, they win this one.
Yeah, at this point in the season, it's all about just getting the wins and playing better each week. And, it's good to see Ontario at least being competitive now, where they had won a couple weeks without scoring. But Galion right now is just rolling, playing some really good football at the right time.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that, because playing at home in front of their fans, Ontario did. They put on a pretty decent show, 20 points for them in the end, but it's the Tigers who get the victory. OCC championship game at Fallis Field last night. Mansfield Senior looking to stay undefeated. And they would come out first with the scoring. It's Angelo Gross with an impressive play early. The Michigan State commit weaves 68 yards for a 10-0 Tigers lead. And at this point, boys, I was thinking, this is what we expected. Mansfield's looking great.
Yeah, they came out with a lot of confidence. Being on the road, they made some mistakes early, but in the end, I think everybody was feeling pretty good at this point.
Here's Terrence Flickinger. This is the opening drive of the second half. This gave Senior High a 17-6 advantage, but the Generals would trim the lead down to 17-12 late in the third on this touchdown right here, and then they got the ball back with under 90 seconds to play, where Owen Roach, you're about to see, tosses it up to Micah McKee, and he makes the play of the year, in my opinion. He did get both feet in, too, folks. 21-yard, game-winning touchdown with just 21 seconds left. Wooster stuns Mansfield Senior 18-17 to clinch at least a share of the league championship. We'll end things in Lancaster, where it's Lucas on the road at Fisher Catholic. Both teams 6-1 coming into the game. Tommy Zerzo has been awesome lately. Gosh, he's been a phenom just about every week. He went for 131 yards. There's a touchdown there to give the Cubs the early lead. Later, it's going to be Logan Nicewander rolling right. He catches a block, and he reaches over the pylon. That's good for another Lucas score. Carson Hogger coming up here is going to turn some offense, or some defense, I should say, into some offense. Pick 6. He had 4 total touchdowns. The Cubs stomped the Irish at their place, 55-21. You guys impressed?
Yeah, I'm really impressed. As a matter of fact, I think they're going to have a great shot to make a lot of noise in the playoffs. I mean, you talk about a team getting better and better and better, and like we've talked about, you don't like playing against this team because their offense is very hard to prep for.
I am blown away by what we've seen from Lucas. When they graduated Jeb Grover, who was their all-everything guy, one of the top running backs in the history of the state, I wasn't really sure what to expect from them. They have far exceeded, I think, anybody's expectations here in the area. They've got some big wins. They got to play everybody all over the state. And they looked awesome last night on the road against a good team.
I think toughness travels. You know what I mean? So if you've got a team that is tough and hard-nosed, it doesn't matter where you play. The game is simplified for them. I can't get over when I watch highlights and I see a quarterback making a pitch sweep and then he's involved in the blocking scheme.
He's a good blocker.
One of their best. And to me, that says everything you need to know about Lucas football. And now they've expanded to now they can actually complete passes, and they have a really good passing attack to go with their physicality. They are. I agree with Erik. They're gonna be a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs.
Yeah, Effie brings up a great point, talking about the quarterback's role within that offense. Sometimes it's running it, sometimes it's throwing it, sometimes it's blocking. And what I appreciate is I think that when you're chasing what we used to call special, you're chasing special each and every week, but to chase special, the other S word that you have to have is selfless. And that's what their players are. Every one of their players buy into this system, and they're fun to watch just from our perspective as former players and coaches, because you can see that they genuinely enjoy their coaching staff, their players, and you know, effort and attitude, it doesn't graduate. And what you're seeing is the next generation and the next group of Cubs coming through that just love playing football, and they love the way they play it, and they like the authenticity of what they do and how they do it.
And they're known for being tough and physical up front, but they have like some real good skill guys.
Yeah.
So when you look at the Hogger kid, the Sauter kid's pretty good, and Eiswander throws a nice ball, and then Zurzo out of the backfield. So I really think that Lucas could be our best chance to get a team to the state Final Four this season, assuming that they stay healthy and keep things going. Congratulations to the Generals beating Mansfield Senior last night. That was a cool win to watch. The game had a little bit of a weird feel to it, but at the end of the game, they made the plays that they needed to, where I think that it was kind of the opposite for Mansfield Senior. Erik, you were talking about a couple of plays that Mansfield just missed on in that second half where it looked like they could have put it away.
Cam Todd has been one of my favorite players to watch all year, still is. He's so efficient. I mean, you know, for me to be able to sit here at a distance and kind of see what he does and how he does it, I've been so impressed. And there's just a couple of plays I think he'd like to have back there. But, you know, credit Wooster, because Effie had said something before we even started rolling the cameras where the Generals did a good job of blitzing him and getting pressure. I mean, they came after him. They were not going to let him be comfortable. They were going to make him catch the ball and get rid of it. There were a couple of passes I think he'd like to have back. There was one specifically, I believe, with the Ellerby guy, and just kind of overshot him a little bit. But that's going to happen. You know, he's not going to be perfect every single play. He still had an incredible, I mean, if you look at the stats, he had a great game. And, you know, I think that his ability to rebound this week and have a great week of practice. I mean, I was talking to Choke before the game, and he said, man, when we're out there and it's a defensive primary, he's out there bringing water to the defensive guys. You want to rally around that. So I know what kind of a leader he is. I know what they're going to do this week to get themselves back. But Wooster just kept hanging around. They kept hanging around. And Senior High kept jabbing and jabbing and jabbing, and they never actually laid that knockout. I think they had at least two opportunities to lay that knockout punch. They didn't quite do that. And when you have a team that's scrapping and clawing and fighting, and you give them an opportunity to make a play at the end of the game, and they capitalized on it, they just made that one last play. I still think Mansfield Senior is a state Final Four team, and I know you do too. I think that the athleticism, I think that the ability, the ceiling on this team is very, very high. So I'm hoping that they just regroup, get back together, do what you do, have a great week of practice, put that thing behind you, put that taste out, get rid of it, wash it out, move on, and they're going to be fine.
And real quickly, you know, I don't think Mansfield Senior did, but maybe like guys like us, maybe sleeping on Wooster a little bit. This is a team that's won 5 straight now, and then you look at the 3 that they lost to start the year, Dover, Wadsworth, Orville, playoff team, playoff team, playoff team. So maybe it just took them a couple of weeks to get things figured out. I thought that they looked pretty good last night. Mansfield was the better team, in my opinion, but the Generals looked pretty good.
Yeah, I thought they looked good, and I thought also, you know, I think we talked about after the Sandusky win, you know, I mentioned that I thought that was probably the most talented team they would play, but I didn't believe that was going to be the toughest game they had. And because the more, you know, as coaches, we understand how powerful film can be. And Wooster, I thought their coaching staff did an outstanding job of looking at Tigers and breaking down everything about them and saying, you know what, they're great, but we're going to have to be willing to give up something. And I watched them play defensively, and literally they spent most of the night without a free safety, and they played a lot of man coverage, and they challenged the Tigers to do some things that they don't normally do, and they gave them a lot of pressure. I think Cam probably got hit more than he has all season. And, you know, and when it came down to it, like we've talked about, you know, Mansfield certainly, I think, was a better team, but it's not about that in sports. It's about who plays the better game. And from bell to bell, I thought Wooster played the better game. And I think also that the Tigers will learn from this. You hate to learn from losses or take a loss to learn. But to me, we talked about the chances for Final Four. I think that makes them more of a Final Four threat, because now they can see teams are now going to be willing to give up things to try to stop certain things in your offense and defense. But that loss, I'm sure, knowing the coaching staff the way I do, that's going to propel them to play some of their best football.
Could be one of those cases where I know coaches love building off of a win better, but sometimes you can take a couple of things from a loss and move forward. I just think it's crazy how Ashland, all they got to do is take care of business against West Holmes this next week, who's been struggling a little bit, and then they get to play Wooster. They could also get a share of this OCC championship, so it could be a three-way tie depending on what happens in that game. It's a really interesting conference, just the way that it's all shaken down. It certainly is not anything that I was picturing a couple of weeks ago. Same thing in the MOAC. Take a look at a couple of the scores here. River Valley takes care of Harding 36-12. Pleasant, a big OT win that Erik Will predicted on this show last week, 47-44. Galion 42, Ontario 20. We showed you, and then Shelby was out of the league against LCC. But man, they're starting to shake out in this conference chase. There, I think this is about the most fun one to watch because there's a lot of good teams. Ontario is about the only team that's kind of really on the far side looking out. Everybody's pretty much in the mix.
I mean, there are 4 or 5 teams that can still win this league title or get a piece of this league title. As a matter of fact, I think by week 10, I think that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to have 2 or 3 teams kind of taking a sliver of this pie. So what it speaks is to parity in football in the area. You're seeing a lot of good coaching, and coaches are doing a good job of putting their players in a position to be successful. And I said it a lot last night with the senior high game when they were playing the Generals there. Teams are well scouted today. Yeah. I mean, the film, the ability to watch teams, see what they do, how they do it this late into the year. Your execution has to be at an unbelievable high rate right now. Your hand placement, your feet, where are you going? What are you doing? How are you getting there? What's the new thing that you're the new wrinkle that you're thinking about putting in that week? All of those things are going to help decide these league titles.
Right, I agree with that too. I think the point at this point of the season is to not become new. You can't reinvent yourself. You have got to execute your offense and defensive schemes because at this point, every team knows what you're going to do coming in. And the idea is with the other team knowing what I'm going to do, can I still execute it? And right now, wherever teams are today, when they're going through their walkthroughs, watching film, they're trying to perfect ways to already execute what they have and the little wrinkles.
Right.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how many MOAC teams end up making the postseason. Right now, I think there's about 5 of them that have a chance to be playing in Week 11. Let's talk a little bit about the Northern 10 because last week, the big shakeup, Cary wins in overtime against Seneca East. Well, the Devils got pancaked this past week by Winford, 42-10. Seneca East bounced back. They beat Upper Sandusky. And then Bucyrus over Crawford. This, to me, is one of the best stories in the area. The Redmen have been bad at football for going on a while now. So they're in the playoff mix. They're winning some games. 38-20, they take care of Crawford. What do you guys make about this league and what we're seeing right now where, again, there's about 3-4 teams that are all lined up that have an opportunity over the last couple of weeks to get a piece of the pie?
Yeah, to me, it's another coaching point where you can go into your kids every Saturday morning and say, listen, we're going to watch film, we're going to get better, and then we're going to come out on Monday, and we're going to have a great scouting report, and we need to have the best week of practice we can possibly have because anybody can beat anybody. You have to respect your opponents. I mean, I think that's what we're seeing more than anything else. Right. You're looking at Cary, who I believe at that time had, 2 wins and went over and beat Seneca East, who is a state-ranked and a team that is definitely a heavy favorite to potentially get out of that region to be a Final Four team. And a team like Wooster goes to practice, and you have no idea about that matchup. You're thinking Seneca East, just like we would, is going to put on a show, and that one's going to be probably ugly early. Cary ends up winning. Now, if you're Winford, you're going to practice saying, hey, guys, we got to get back at this thing hard because we've got a league championship we're playing for now. So it just shows you that you have 2 things. You have to continue to prepare. And even if you're a team that really can't compete for a league title, maybe you can play the spoiler. How cool is it to do that? When you have an opportunity to kind of screw someone's season over. That's a fun place to be in, man.
And I don't remember the last time that Winford Bucyrus mattered in Week 10. Right. It's been like a couple of decades or something.
I mean, you can hit a driver and hit the school from each other's football field. So, for me, I hope that happens just because I want that thing. That's a true, backyard brawl.
I like the fact that teams like Cary who come in ready to play and they beat a Seneca East. Well, what that does now is a team like Winford who probably could have took the night off maybe against Cary and maybe not prepared as hard.
Right.
Well, now they got to come in focused. They're like, well, wow, this team beat Seneca East, so now they deserve a lot more of our attention. And that fast forward to the OCC matchup in Week 10, how much you think that Ashland's going to be preparing now for Wooster coming in? So it's great to see those games, but that's why you play them, and that's why you can't take anyone for granted.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and head over to the whiteboard now. We're going to take a look at some jail prison screens.
All right, guys, here we go. We're going to take a look at the jail and prison. The jail means that we're running the screen to the play side, which would be the four-man side here. Mansfield Senior does a good job here of going empty to try to put their athletes in space. The prison goes to the back side. Now, why would we want to isolate this man here? Because he's the best guy in North Central Ohio. He does a great job when the ball's in his hand. When he gets the ball in open space, good things happen for the Tigers. Now, what we're doing here is we want to invite pressure. So teams that are really, really aggressive, we get a second and long, a third and long situation. We want to invite this front, along with these backers, we want to invite them in. So at the snap of the ball, what we're going to get is we're going to get a little bubble over here. These guys are going to squirm. They're going to match up. So that's the play side. This would be called the jail side. If we want to go back to the prison side, what we have is Angela's going to drive hard for a couple of steps. These guys are going to bail just for about a half count. They're going to punch, and then they release up the field. So this guy's going to blitz, which is exactly what the Tigers want, and you'll see that on the film. When this backer blitzes, Cam Todd does a great job of settling. He keeps his shoulders high. He wants to slowly drift to invite that pressure in. All of these guys will release. And then what he's going to do is he's going to turn his head this way to get all of the action or try to get these guys moving this way. Angelo's going to retrace his steps and come back. The ball will be delivered, and what you're going to see is these guys are going to work out, and they're going to pick up the secondary players. So when he gets the ball in space, it's going to be a touchdown. So let's go ahead and take a look at the film here. Cam Todd gets the snap. You can see the bubble. He looks to the right, comes back to the left. Great job. When you get this guy in space, this is a great way to do it because he will make you pay every single time he touches the ball. So it's kind of hard to see him retrace his steps, but he's going to give you 2 to 3 hard steps down the field, retrace his steps and come back. He has to do that to give the play time to develop. There he catches the ball. Great job by the left tackle there. You can see the guard, the big daddy out there getting down there trying to get himself. Why that is not lineman downfield? Because the ball is caught behind the line of scrimmage, which allows this to be a perfect play for the Tigers, and this is why they're very effective on the offensive end, getting their ball to their best player.
So that's a breakdown of the jail prison screen game with the Mansfield Tigers, as shown to you by Erik Will. Now let's jump into the top individual performances of the week on our Friday Night Phenoms, presented by Baker's Collision. Start things off with Owen Roach, the Wooster junior quarterback, 22 of 30, 206 yards and 2 touchdowns, but none more important than the game-winning dime that he threw into the corner of the end zone as Wooster upends Mansfield Senior 18-17. Also had 11 carries, 36 yards, but just the poise that he had, the confidence there at the end of the game, very worthy of this list.
I'm just impressed with area quarterbacks in general. The quarterback position has grown so much, and to be able to see this junior do what he does, very steady. He's kind of like the Wooster equivalent to Cam Todd, just very steady, under control, runs the ball well, makes very good decisions. It was kind of nice branching outside of Richland County and being able to go to Wayne County to see that, because he definitely deserves this recognition this week, because I thought that his running was timely, and I thought that he made every pass that had to be made at a situation in the game where it had to be made or the game could potentially be over.
And the Generals get a share of the OCC crown with the victory. Sean Thomas from Lima Central Catholic, junior running back, did everything last night. 18 carries, 316 yards. That's pretty efficient. 4 touchdowns on the ground. Also caught 4 balls for 113 yards and 2 more scores. If you total it all up, gentlemen, that's 429 scrimmage yards. I think that's the most I've ever heard by one human on this planet. Crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting to have that type of night, but one thing that brings all that together is speed. And when you can run faster than most people on the field, you got an opportunity to have big games. And you put that together with some tremendous ball skills, which he showed in a lot of the highlights, you're going to have big nights like that. But still, that is very impressive to see.
Big catches, big runs all night, and because of that speed, it kills Effie. That's what they say. Thunderbirds beat Shelby 55-41. Isaiah Alsip, the Galion Senior wide receiver / defensive back, 11 catches, 181 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also toted the rock 7 times for 59 yards as the Tigers beat Ontario 42-20. He's just their best athlete. They can put him kind of anywhere on offense, and it's scary. They line him at quarterback sometimes in the Wildcat.
Yeah, I mean, he's a top 5 athlete in the area. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if Galion wants to win football games, he has to touch the ball a bunch. And what you're seeing is receivers, it's not good enough just to be a receiver. You have to affect the game on special teams. You have to affect the game in the backfield. It is the responsibility of the coaches to make sure that the ball is being touched consistently by your best players. And Isaiah Alsip, if he's not touching the ball, shame on the coaches. But I know Coach Dick and his staff is making sure that he touches the ball 20-25 times a game.
Yeah, he got his touches last night, had a big performance in a win against Ontario. Mitchell Howman back on the list, the Ashland Senior quarterback, 30 of 44, threw it a bunch last night, 286 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also doing some damage on the ground, 11 carries, 56 yards, and 2 more scores as the Arrows beat Lexington 35-10. Efficiency, Effie, he did it. He did have 1 interception. I know you don't like that from the quarterback spot, but did pretty much everything else well.
No, I like Mitch. I like his progression over the year has been really good, and he's one that doesn't force much. He does well with getting the ball to his playmakers, and he does well protecting the football most of the time. And he runs well, so he's right in that mold of Ashland QBs.
And the Arrows staying in the OCC conversation. If they can get a couple more wins, can also get a piece of the conference pie. Finally, we've got Carson Hogger, the Lucas Senior wide receiver, defensive back, kick returner, punt returner. He's one of those guys. He does absolutely everything for the Cubs. He had 4 touchdowns last night in 3 different ways, 2 of them of the receiving variety. And I don't know if they officially keep this statistic for the OHSAA, but I think he has 4 touchdown kick returns to start the second half this season. It is just crazy, just the vibe, the energy that he brings to the team. He does everything.
Yeah, when you think about, baseball and softball, they talk about a 5-tool player. That's what he is for them. He's a Swiss Army knife, so he does everything for them, offense, defense, special teams. And he wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, if you were to talk to him, he wants to be on the field making plays every single night. To put that kid on the sideline would be a waste of his talent. And the great thing was with small school football, he gets to take every snap. I bet at the end of every night, he's probably got between 150 and 175 snaps, and he could probably take another 20 or 30 snaps.
Oh, it'll be a high school kid again. Cubs beat Fisher Catholic 55-21. Lucas off to a 7-1 start. So that's your top individual performances from Friday night under the lights. Now let's take a look at the top 5 plays of the week presented by North Central State College. Nominee number 1 takes us down to Lancaster, where it's Lucas on the road. Logan Niswander, the gun on the roll. It's kind of hard to see at first, but Carson Hogger shakes off the defender with an Uzi juke, stiff arms another dude to the ground, then rolls 26 yards on the house call. Another look a little bit slower now, the hungry Hogger. One of his 4 scores and 7 points. All kinds of time for Ashland QB Mitchell Hyman at nominee number 2, where eventually he's going to decide on a long ball across his body, but perfect touch as he finds Eli White. Touchdown Arrows for a 14-10 lead on the road. This is the last play of the first half too, folks. Clutch factor times 6 as he goes for 6, helping Ashland knock off Lex. And speaking of clutch, how about the game on the line under 30 seconds to go? Wooster trying to knock out the unbeaten Tigers of Owen Roach. Look at the placement, 2 feet in there for Micah McKee. Generals win the OCC championship on this play. Unbelievable 21-yard connection by a pair of underclassmen there. They'll remember this one right here when they look at the league title in the trophy case. They're having nightmares out there in Shelby thinking about our next touchdown recipient at nominee number 4, Sean Thomas. Look at him scorch across the field, catch that crazy-shaped ball, and he's headed for 6. Great concentration on this play as he tracks down the rock, and nobody was faster than this Lamborghini on this night. 6 touchdowns and over 400 yards for Thomas in this game alone. That's a solid season for regular people. Last nominee, you saw Coach Will break this thing down on the whiteboard. Gotta respect the play design and downfield blocking there by the Mansfield Senior lineman, but sometimes it's just about vision and speed. Angelo Gross got them both, and he's ghosting for a 6-point check. Cash it in off the prison screen, 68 yards, and a Tiger score on this beautiful play. But it's the Generals who got the mega win. So week 8 of the season provided us with some drama at the end of games. We also saw some teams show out who we thought would show out. What would you say? What are you taking away from this week as we head into week 9 and the playoff picture really starts to unfold here?
2 things, specifically targeting teams that are coming off a loss or 2 in the last couple of weeks that are still in playoff and still chasing after league championships. Wipe your hands of it. Like you said, the men in black thing. Hit the little red button, forget about it, and move on. I think that's what the better teams in the area are going to have to do this week. That's the mental toughness. That's the stuff inside that coaches talk about. Mental toughness sometimes it looks different in different programs, but that's something I think is consistent, and that's what I want to see from what I got from this week to going into week 9 is how are these teams that are starting to get some adversity, maybe even some injuries, maybe even some execution things. How are you going to respond to continue to chase after your goals as a collective group? Because it can't be done by one guy, and it can't be done by a coach. It has to be done by a collective group with all the men that are in that locker room.
Good point. Same exact thing for me. I was thinking that same thing, but specifically for like Clear Fork and Mansfield Senior, those teams that are still in the hunt for the title, and the way they play this coming week can either, solidify them as a conference champ, or they could lose it all the way they play this week. So it'll be interesting to see. What I took from week 8 is to see how these teams are going to bounce back coming into it's a pivotal week 9. Their opponent may be different, but they have both of them, those teams specifically, have a pivotal week 9 in order to get rolling into week 10 and possibly the playoffs for both those teams.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up week 9, Effie, because we're about to predict the future. We're going to look into our crystal balls and let all the folks at home know exactly what's going to happen. Make a bold call for me, Erik Will.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you 2 things. I'm not going to predict major upsets here. I'm not going out on that limb. I actually felt pretty good about Pleasant because I know what type of team they are and how they're coached. So I don't know how much of a real crystal ball that was last week. I am going to say this upset alert. I don't even think it's an upset alert. I just think that going down to River Valley, and I know you're going to go more in depth on this, that's troublesome for the people in Shelby. Because they understand what that game means and the significance with the league of that. But I also I'm going to be at the Lexington Madison game. I want to see what kind of scrap Madison has left. I want to see what they have in the tank. I want to see if they. I think that if they have a great week of practice and put that green pride on, man, get that green pride. And come out and compete. And I want to see if you can give Lexington 4 quarters and give them everything they can handle. That's what I want to see. I'd like to see Madison show out here a little bit this year. I like their coaching staff. And they got a lot of nice players. But I want to see them, that tradition, and Effie knows better than I do, that Madison tradition is good. There's a lot of players that have come on that field and played a lot of good football. And I'd like to see them just harness that and just come out and just see if they can go get one or take one from a conference rival.
So you taking the Rams?
I'm not taking the Rams, but I think it's going to be a great game. I can't do it, man.
I'm looking at the River Valley and Shelby game, and I'm going to go ahead and take River Valley as my bold call for no specific reason other than the fact that I know that high school football at this point of the season, is a toss-up. River Valley has been, they've had a solid season, and as has Shelby. So I think this game's going to come down to the little things, and I think River Valley is going to get it done. I also think looking at the Mansfield Senior Mount Vernon game, it is going to be interesting to see. But my bold call for that game is that the week of practice they have this week at Mansfield is going to be different. And I think they're going to go on the road and they're going to get back to normal. And I think they're going to have a huge run clock shutout at Mount Vernon this week. So it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back. But I just got confidence they'll bounce back and have a big win.
I think I'm going to tilt in the other direction on that one, Effie. I think these Tigers, they're going to be geared up, man. They're like, you know what? We're coming off of a loss. We're going to go make a statement on the road. And when you go to the Hive, that's a pretty good environment over there in Mount Vernon.
True.
I tell you what, if things don't go well at the beginning of the game, I just think the Jackets might come out, take a couple of scores lead. Maybe the Tigers bounce back, though, and get a win on the road. But I do think that it's going to be a little bit better of a game than perhaps you would think with Mount Vernon playing at home. I want to give a quick thank you to our entire crew that goes out and braves the cold on Friday nights. Effie, James, Erik, always out at games. We also have Storm on the sidelines along with Garrett. We've got Ramis out there, Cassie, my wife, Jory Hollenbeck, all out there making things happen, getting the video, and we bring it to you every single week right here on the OH Report and, of course, on the Saturday Pigskin. So just 2 more weeks left, fellas. Man, I can't believe things shake down this fast, but that's how it goes. We'll see you back here next week.
So